Рада вас приветствовать в этом прекрасном здании в нашем замечательном городе Москва.
This event hall in the city of Moscow. We are at the round table that is related to the maritime medicine and maritime healthcare. And I think all of you know that at the 21st April this year, the same event or similar event was held in St. Petersburg with a great success. And I think this will be a good tradition at our multidisciplinary meetings in the context of this particular issue. And now I want to let the floor to the Professor Andrei Borisovich Karpov, President of the Association in Atstrov, the MD. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Distinguished colleagues, dear friends, let me assure the the best for you in the name of the Institute of Remote Healthcare. Thank you for your time and for your visit today, because now attending at our event, you are supporting us, and especially I want to thank our, I think, perhaps this will not be a sponsor, but our general partner in first. This is a group of companies, Center of Corporate Medicine, who are the organization that is providing for the activities of our association in plane of analysis, for example, analysis of this big data that we are getting from them related to the remote healthcare. And by the way, today's event is the second event, the second round table that we are facilitating now in Moscow. And needless to say that maritime healthcare and maritime medicine is one of the key directions of the remote healthcare that is the topic of work of the organization starting from its initiation in 2016. And there are several directions like medicine of Arctics, seafarers medicine, uh, and other directions. And unfortunately, in Russian Federation, this direction, when we're speaking about maritime healthcare, this is a bit unofficially regulated. It is not officially accepted, and I think by our collective effort, we will achieve the best results for this. And the roundtable that we are seeing right now is the second meeting in this format, and I want to state that this is not a one-time campaign. This is not one shot in the dark. This is a systemic policy, and we will go on with this work, and further on we will facilitate similar meetings, and the next meeting is announced for September 2021 in Tomsk, where we will hold the third international conference on remote health issues with the representatives from international authorities and agencies as usual. Particularly, some speakers will be in online format, especially when we're speaking about the foreign guests, but we are waiting for more than 100 people. That means they are already registered for this event. And I think that on this conference, the issue of maritime healthcare will be devoted, uh, will be covered within one section. And I want to invite all of you to take part in this debate. Please go and visit Tomsk. This is a university center, a very rich city of Russia with rich history, for example. And I do hope that we will support you there, and I can assure you. And as of today, thank you very much for gathering again, for your personal and online presence. And I hope that our discussion will be fruitful and very interesting. And thank you. Thank you so much. And now to the address of the round table. There are greeting words from the State Duma and the Council of Federation of the Russian Federation. And now I want the Counselor of the President of Innozdrav's Association, Ms. Anatolievna. Uh, so she will read it out, and I think she is guiding all of this the event, and for her merit, it is the best that she is now doing for us. So the floor is yours. Distinguished friends, I'm happy to contact you and connect with you with the facilitators and participations of the Roundtable Maritime Medicine International Experience. According to the statistics, in the world there are more than 1.5 million people whose profession is devoted to the seafarers and seafaring. Year of the year, day of the day, there are different kinds of vessels in our seas, in our inland and outward navigation, and we are opening the oceans in very, very different places. And the long term of their presence, the presence of the seafarers out of the borders of their countries, is taking months, perhaps, or even half of a year and more. And the safety of seafarers is one of the most priorities of seafarer companies, institutes, and agencies and bodies. And this is one of the very important topics for us, and it's very important for us to get to know the international experience, get to know the best practices, and facilitate international cooperation to share our own experiences and to develop the new methods in seafarers services and in maritime healthcare. And I think that the issues that will be covered today will support the development of maritime healthcare in Russia. And these words are stated by the senator of the Council of Russian Federation, Olga Yepefanova. Distinguished colleagues, in the name of the State Duma, on behalf of the Federal Council of the Russian Federation, I'm happy to greet the organizers and facilitators and participants of the second roundtable in maritime medicine. Maritime medicine, as a special branch of the medical science and practical approach, is fully set in the world medical space. And today, in view of the coronavirus inspection, we are seeing that there is more and more attention paid to this particular topic because the seafarers are going out and within the borders of our countries, and they need to be especially protected. And today's platform for maritime healthcare collected the specialists from Russia and from the other countries of the world who are sharing their knowledge in maritime medicine. I wish you a constructive dialogue and exchanging your experience and knowledge. Deputy Head of the State Duma of the Seventh Conclave, Igor Ananskih. Thank you. Oksana Anatolievna, thank you so much. And I wanted now to let the floor to Mr. Lomachenko Alexander Ivanovich, who is representing the Department for Work on the Cooperation with the Entrepreneurs, PhD, and the he's the one who provided for the roundtable this gorgeous event hall. Thank you. Thank you so much, distinguished colleagues. On behalf of the Trade and Commerce Chamber of the Russian Federation, I want to congratulate the participants of the roundtable and the ones who are gathered here within our venue at the ICC. This is the historical building of the former Moscow Moscow Exchange, and this is just the heart piece of the Russian entrepreneurship. And the ones who are here today online at the video conference, they are also very welcome. And here we've witnessed many, many different topics, starting from the global economical topics to very narrow and sufficiently narrow branch-related topics like veterinary, healthcare of I don't know, rats, for example. But never we have covered here the topic of the maritime medicine. And I think for the first time this problem and this issue is now debated here within the ICC, Moscow, and we are pretty glad that this is happening here, and we are every time welcoming you to facilitate the debates of this very interesting topic. And especially I want to note the international character of our roundtable, and I want undoubtedly thank our international cooperators from Spain, Denmark, Morocco, and this will be very interesting presentations related to the practice and to the norms and the regulations and conditions of your work. This is all interesting topics. And today at our roundtable we see medical healthcare professionals, representatives of Russian agencies and bodies, the owners of ships, and so on and so forth. And today, speaking at this tribune, I need to say a special word of my admiration to the representatives of healthcare. Because, you know, I originally come from the family of surgeons and gynecologists, and from this age I've seen all these night shifts, all these night operations or very early operations, sanitary aviation, and so on and so forth. And I got used to see that people are admiring healthcare specialists, doctors, nannies, everybody actually. And the last 2.5 years, we see that this is really a heroic feature. And I'm not overusing my pathos skills right now, because here I just wanted to thank you, and now I am finishing my words. But I want to state again that International Chamber of Trade and Commerce in Moscow is very interested in your direction of work, and we are every time ready to help you, to provide you with additional assistance in legal initiatives or in development of draft laws and norms, because there is a committee on entrepreneurship in healthcare, in medical um, direction, and we are ready to help you, to get you some additional knowledge and to use the authority of Chamber of Commerce. The vice president of the Chamber of Trade and Commerce, Vladimir Padalka, is greeting also you, and he is writing pretty much the same, uh, but what I am saying, but perhaps in the other words. And the last sentence is: I wish to all the participants successful work, successful meeting, and good health. And I am joining right now joyfully to the words and wishes of the president of the Russian Chamber of Trade and Commerce. We are happy to see you at every time. Distinguished colleagues, now I am having additional remote meeting. And by the way, you see that remote meetings are simultaneously held in many rooms of today's venue. And I will now leave you, but we are at your services. Thank you very much. Alexander Ivanovich, thank you very much for your warm greetings. Thank you. And let us tell you that you are of our own. We are of the same blood with you, because you are also um, coming from the medical background. Distinguished colleagues, dear friends, I think we can go now to our agenda. And now I will invite our speakers to be to deliver their presentations in time. That means 15 minutes for a presentation, and then 5 minutes for at least two questions. One question from the hall and one question that will be gathered online. As of now, we've registered more than 100 participants at the international level from different countries. And you see that there is a huge interest from the Southeast Asia, for example, although there is a huge difference in time between Moscow and Asia and Pacific region. I think we are also we are now together with our friends from this region. Unfortunately, Naumenko Alexander Alexandrovich, who was the part of the agenda, could not be present today. Therefore, Mr. Lepetinsky Ivan Sergeyevich, Chief Surgeon at the Seafarers Rescue Service, Maritime Operation and International Experience of Cooperation. Distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. Greetings. I hope you can see my presentation now on the screen. And yes, thank you. I'm happy to greet the organizers, facilitators, and participants of the International Roundtable, Maritime Medicine International Experience, and we are the speakers. And also, medical segment will be delivered by me into 10 to 12 minutes. Just briefly about me. As you've stated from the very beginning, yes, I am the chief surgeon at the medical response at the sea service. I am the expert and examinator of the IMO seafarers support, and I am the instructor. And I graduated at Sechenov University. Now I am providing for my PhD the in terms of reserves of the sportsman, and seafarers medicine is also my topic. My topic is the medical reaction at sea, medical response at the sea, and experience in international cooperation within marine operations. And let me define the scenario of my presentation, just the terms and conditions. I will tell you about the practical medicine in sea projects, historical data, international cooperation, and plans of medical response with systems of planning of emergency scenarios and medical support. Briefly, medical response is the structural term of the structure of healthcare and medical support, also including the specialized medical support. But still, as a separate direction, this is the maritime healthcare with use of the gadgets, also the medical gadgets that are ready at hand and parade for critical use at any objects remote to the stationary medical structures.
So talking about the terminologies, we talk about the emergency. This is an unexpected situation that can cause casualties and that can number in hundreds and that can cause the rise of infectious disease. That includes pandemic as well. And the task of medical professionals is provide medical help and also help rescue and evacuate all the victims, provide medical provision during the rescue operations such as extinguishing fire, removing the landmines, and also eliminated biological hazards or other types of hazards during the rescue operations, and also provide safety for all the people engaged in the rescue operation. Providing medical aid to maritime operation covers risk management and risk assessment, and this is done with the control of international associations. And typically, medical function is not associated with standard outpatient clinic operations, and we understand that we need to provide 100% round-the-clock readiness for any situation, and scenarios can be of all types, quite extraordinary as well. If single clinical cases occur, and that also may include the harm to hundreds of people, we need to take into consideration various weather conditions, remotedness from the medical facilities, need to evacuate people, and again, we need to demonstrate 100% round-the-clock readiness for any situations, and that can be done with the presence of one or two doctors on board or presence of certain skills and competencies of the personnel on board. When we talk about the capacity of a maritime rescue service, we in this regard are equally superior to many countries, and if you look at our capabilities, our capacities, you can see the statistic here. Typically, we can provide aid within 35 minutes, and that was a calculated standard, and it's very important to provide help within 35 minutes. I will underline that 35 minutes. We can provide beds for victims, and we have a sufficient number of beds on the rescue vessels. What are the types of events that are categorized as disasters, and we can talk about events that also helped us to develop standards for rescue operations, and I can refer to such standards as uh, one. Uh, I can talk about the Chinese platform and disaster that happened back in 2012 when more than 60 people were killed, and I can talk about American platform Ocean Ranger 8 that happened in 1982. Think of a Brazilian platform, Peperbras, and many others. Of course, we talk about large number of victims and casualties, and that is how the international approaches and safety standards are developed, and that includes the medical readiness for this component. And we need to provide readiness of paramedics, medical personnel, doctors, etc. Talking about international cooperation. The international cooperation today is the priority for us. We maintain to the medical international responsibilities. There can be multilateral cooperation, and we are talking about cooperation within the Arctic Council Commission for providing safety in the Baltic Sea, that is Baltic Maritime Environmental Protection Commission, Northwest Pacific Action plan, and there are also two bilateral agreements with neighboring countries such as Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, USA, Norway. Talking about the training exercises that we are engaged in, that are conducted under the aegis of the cooperation with other countries, I certainly can mention the Bravo training courses that took place in 2017. There was also an international training on communication. There was Black Sea communication training. There was a training at Barents Sea that happened in August 2017. We also carried out a set of exercises and trainings with Kazakhstan to evacuate the oil spill. Also, there was an international cooperation on liquidating the oil spill in the northern seas. We also held joint trainings with the Republic of Korea. Actually, we have a list of the relevant trainings, and actually I could dedicate a whole session to our training courses, and maybe we will do that as we hold another conference. I can say that in 2019 in Norway we held joint trainings with our northern affiliate of the rescue service, and this training was held very successfully. We held another set of trainings with Norway in the Barents Sea, and another one in the Finnish Bay. As a rule, all these trainings are aimed at increasing readiness for oil spill related rescue operations, but also provide evacuation of people that can be lost at sea. And we use international competences that we use as guidance as we choose this or the other agent that would help us to provide medical services. Here you see our plan of emergency medical response. I think it also will be interesting for our participants to look at the priority when it comes to the emergency medical response plan. So we have an algorithm of all response actions in order to save lives of people that suffered in the course of the disaster, and it comes to rescue and evacuation, transporting people. And as for qualified medical personnel, that is done according to the international standards of the relevant committees and professional societies, and that includes the American Cardiological Association as European Resuscitation Council. So we'll look at the scope of resuscitation measures we can provide, and we also look at the team actions during response operations. We also look at standards of the American Association on Trauma and providing help before hospital admission and providing emergency care medical response. I would like to demonstrate you one of the components that we are implementing as we train our uh, employees. And by the way, yeah, start the video. Here we have special safety system for our divers, and we use this system according to the current labor legislation. You can see these are the training scenarios aimed at demonstrating elements of providing first emergency aid. So here we are using the diver's suit, diver's shirt, and it's very important to be trained in a broad way, and sometimes it is very important to cut the costume, and here we do not spare any components. We are ready to do that. Look at hands. Look at hands. It's very important. And these are the elements we train, and I focus on that as I conduct trainings for divers. And again, these are integral parts of the emergency providing emergency aid. We have been providing such trainings over the past 4 years. Here you see the demonstration of the components, and that is done according to international support scenarios. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank the trainers that helped us to implement this program. It was really a very good example of cooperation, and very briefly, I will talk about planned emergency response, and that has to do with international cooperation. Of course, we use the guidelines for maritime and aviation rescue operations. These guidelines describe all the components of the rescue operations. Summing up, I would like to say that I'm very thankful. Very thankful to the organizers, to our audience, for an opportunity to talk about this subject. And also it's great that so much attention is given to such an important subject. I will be happy to answer any of your questions. Ivan, thank you very much. I would like to emphasize high level of professionalism of your team. Actually, I received lots of positive feedback from seafarers that undergo training at your center, and it's great that today BCAP courses are available in Moscow, because prior to that the ferries had to fly to Baku, Azerbaijan, or other countries because none of our centers were accredited. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. And let me add the following. You have mentioned a PETA training course, and historically it happened that I was engaged in setting up the course in Moscow, and we cover risk assessment, risk management areas, and it's great that we were able to initiate the course for medical professionals, for paramedics, and thank you. Yes, a question that we received online. In your opinion, how will maritime medicine develop in the next 10 to 20 years? A very good question. 10 or 20 years scope, I believe that the priority will be, or the focus will be on safety. The priorities will revolve around competences of non-medical personnel that will be engaged in scenarios that we use for training our people for risk management and risk assessment. And answering this question, I must mention that the legislation is going to be changed in terms of providing emergency aid at sea, and the next uh, sitting of Duma should provide approval for the set of documents, and the authorities of the rescue teams will be extended, and it's great that we will have teams that will be able to provide medical manipulations and provide paramedic help. I believe it's a breakthrough, and most likely it's going to be new time where we will see a high level of competencies, and seafarers themselves will be ready to provide first emergency aid, and they will be striving to require skills that will be part of their competitive advantage. It is for 20 years, that is a very far horizon. Not many people think of that. Thank you very much. We have one more time for the question from the floor. Mr. Shestorin, can you use the microphone, please? The microphone is over there. Is it on? Yes? Alexander Shestonki, Federal Medical and Biological Agency. My question, do you have medical rooms at vessels, and if so, how are they equipped? Okay, thank you very much. Do you still have one question? Yes, only one question. Okay, very good. How about voicing another question? Do we have enough time? Well, very quickly, very quickly. Peter, Bessie, it all sounds good. You need I would like to know about the standards for equipping the medical rooms. If there is already an approved standard such as GP or IGC, maybe we also will start equipping the medical rooms, and the set of medicines at vessels will be standard times, because some documents regulating this area have been in place since 1999. Why don't we use it? Because we are all of customers have their own requirements. Why don't we harmonize this area? Because let's say that if we we deal with oil extracting industry, we use this standard. If it's other type of maritime operations, we use other standards. And what kind of guidelines do you use? I have heard you, and actually, the second question provided the answer to the first one. Getting back to your question, Alexander, what kind of medical equipment we have at our vessels? This is basically a floating hospital, and the equipment is in standards with the Russian legislation. We receive the approval for the facility from medical surveillance agency, and based on my recommendations included, we use special observatory areas on the rescue vessel, and by that I mean a separate ventilation system for isolating rooms. We have airlocks, we have a special direction for door openers, etc., etc. And what is bad is the fact that we are not here, we don't receive sufficient support from the state yet. And we know that the state has resources, but for many obvious reasons that does not happen so far. As for medical equipment and medicines, we have we use all the medical equipment and we do not keep it formally just uh, to avoid certain problems. We satisfy the needs of our customers, and they have their standards based on risk assessment and risk management requirements, international ones. And certainly there is a set of requirements for medical equipment that is stipulated in each and every contract. And of course, we also are in line with the requirements of the local legislation. Even it would be good if it was updated from time to time. While we always take into account all recommendations of various federal agencies, including the Federal Medical and Biological Agency. Talking about the second question, I will I will answer it briefly. Of course, we are consolidating various kinds of requirements, and we include them in every contract. And of course, they have to be helpful as we carry out procurements. And the main difficulty, main challenge is to provide equipment for each vessel. And of course, standards, they don't come out of the blue. And uh, we understand still we have lack of experience, and we make lots of efforts to make sure that they are equipped in a timely manner. And as new experts join us with various experience in procurements. For instance, we have lots of employees that previously worked for Gazprom. We use a standard form that is helpful in doing procurements, including procurement of medical equipment. And of course, we try to stay updated. We understand that some equipment is outdated, new types of equipment emerge. Let's talk about telemedical equipment, and of course we need to have it in place. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you very much for your great questions. I apologize, but we need to stick to our timetable. If we have time left, we will start our Q&A session. All right? In the meantime, we give the floor to our next speaker.
And this is my colleague from the sunshining Spain, Dr. Luisa Canals, and she was perhaps the first one at the very beginning of the International uh, Seafarers Healthcare Association, and she was the first president woman. And Luisa is one of the founders of the Master of Maritime Medicine, Master of Maritime Healthcare in Tarragona, Virgilio Institute, and which was passed further to the University of Cadiz. And as of now, the group of international specialists is working on the creation of the Masters and PhD for Maritime Healthcare, Maritime Medicine course, which will be an inter-university course in Europe, and perhaps it will be also applicable for the countries that will be aligned with the project. I think
Dear Luisa, good morning. Can you hear me? Thank you. And floor is yours. Телемедицина и медицинское обслуживание.
telemedicine and medical services on board for seafarers and fishermen in Spain.
Good morning. Happy to be here with you. So let's see if you can hear me properly. Look, first time I speak with you in telemedicine. Maybe it's reverberating the voice.
Luisa, everything is perfect. We can hear you.
Okay, good. So I will start. We will talk about telemedicine, and we will talk about medical care on board. And we will refer to the Spanish system. So let's start. This presentation has been prepared by me and my colleague Fernando Gomez from the Radio Medical Advice Center. The image you are seeing behind me is the present Radio Medical Advice Center in Madrid. So it is very good to remember that the ILO Maritime Labor Convention was ratified by state. We were the first European Union country to ratify it, and it is in force from August 2013. So the title 4, Rule 1 and 4, talks about health protection. And we have a special place for the medical care, welfare, diagnostic and treatment, the telemedical services, medical checks, medical guide, inspections on board. So this is our background. Here you have some of the Navy hospitals, ships in the world. These ones from USA are very big. They were transformed from tankers. So originally they were not hospital ships. Here even I have found one of yours, very big, and also Chinese one. We have some part of in our Navy ships that is related to hospital ships. We have a part in the Galicia, in the Castilla, in Juan Carlos I, but we're not talking about the Navy in this case. So the special characteristic in our Spanish system is that beside these Navy hospital ships, we have two hospital ships that were designed to be hospital ships. And this makes a big difference. And also, a special characteristic is that these hospital ships belongs to the ministry, inclusion, social security, and immigration ministries, and belongs to a special program for seafarers, the Maritime Health Program. So here you have a picture of the Esperanza del Mar ship, hospital ship, and also a picture of the Juan de la Cosa. These are our two main ships that follow the fishing fleet in their campaigns, the tuna fish campaign and other campaigns. So this is a speciality of our system. This is the structure of our maritime health national program. It was designed and started in 1983. And this program is for the whole Spain. In all the coast, we have special, what we call houses of the sea. That means special buildings just for seafarers, where we are doing the medical examinations, training, preventive, a lot of preventive things. Then we have some centers abroad, especially in Africa, where fishermen get the licenses to fish abroad, outside Spain. In Mauritania, near Morocco, or in Walvis Bay, in the Seychelles, for example. And we have a coordination center that coordinates these hospital ships, also with the radiomedical advice centers, a center for repatriation, and others. So here we can do the two types of medicine: prevention and medical care. And a different type of activities. We can give advice, for example, in our medical examinations, or inspect directly all the ships, merchant and fishing ships. Our Maritime Health Service can go there and, for example, to check if the Maritime Liability Convention is well applied. And then we have this special training system that we also control. The doctors are also teachers of the seafarers in relation to STCW medical care courses. And with this system, all the medical records of the radiomedical advice consultations, of the medical examinations, are in the same database. So we can have a whole picture for epidemiological studies and for health promotion of these workers. Well, these are some photos of the inside of the Esperanza del Mar. So there is a surgical area. We have the possibility to do X-rays or evacuations, and we can control as an
Контроль и обследование.
in the case of important injuries. So
Можем проводить медицинские услуги, оказывать в случаях сильных повреждений.
17 rooms, and then we have the possibility in case of shipwrecks to have three places more, 30 places more. This is a picture of the Esperanza del Mar, and it is in the area of Africa, in the west of Africa, northwest of Africa, normally navigating till Senegal, from the Canary Islands till Senegal. This is the other one. It's a smaller one. Juan de la Cosa is the name, and it is in the North Atlantic area, also following the fishermen, the fishing fleet. Well, in case of accidents, in case of disease, our seafarers are well trained to call our radiomedical advice center.
Мы видим данный пример на изображении. Итак, мы видим здесь с 18 ноября 1920 года у нас начинается история первых радиомедицинских центров, и где-то с 1979 года у нас уже была полностью установлена система взаимодействия в рамках медицинского центра CRME, это испанский центр радиомедицины, который сегодня работает до сих пор, начиная с 20-х годов 20 века. Здесь количество кейсов, количество реальных случаев, которые были проведены, в том числе и эвакуации за последние 10 лет, сводная статистика. Например, за 2020 год мы увидели ряд информации по последнему году, прошлому году, и мы видим, что в нашем медицинском центре мы работаем в основном с испанскими случаями, однако в том числе мы поддерживаем граждан иных стран, оказываем им спасение на водах. Мы точно так же работаем не только с
our fishing fleet is important for us.
Потому что взаимодействие с коммерческим флотом также важно, потому что мы находимся в
In
едином
relation to the
пространстве.
proportion of accidents and diseases, from the beginning, it started about similar. Maybe now we have a little bit more accidents, but the proportion is 3 cases of diseases, 1 of accidents. And normally they are using the IMASAT connection. To improve this, we need some tools, especially the medical chest of board that has to be updated. And also we have other tools like the medical guide for ship. Here you have, well, the main international ones, the International Medical Guide for Ships, and also the last one, that is the ship's captain's medical guide. But we have had all of this. This was the first one, the Guía Sanitaria a Bordo, in 1976. Also our national one, as next edition was in 1987. And from this, there was a Greek version. The Greeks asked us to copy this medical guide at that time. And this is the newest from 2001. We have an English version and Spanish version for this one. And then we have another one later. This version is has several forms. This version of 2013, that is the last one. We have a short version from 2016 that is smaller because we give this version to the ships, the fishing fleet, the ships that are small ships, that they don't need such a big book. And also we have the possibility of a CDO online consultation of the medical guide for ships. Here you have the internet. If you want to download, you can download it for free in PDF. Another important tool is the medical chest board, and especially, well, we follow the European Union, let's say, guidelines. We have a royal decree, a common royal decree from the European Union in relation to the medical chest, and especially the Radiomedical Advice Center use this box 11, where we can find the main tools for diagnostics. And even now, we recommend them to have this antigenic test for the COVID. But this is by now a recommendation. This is now the diseases we have found in the Radiomedical Advice Center in relation to the consultations. And if you compare, for example, the statistics of 2012 and the statistics in 2018, the main diseases are especially musculoskeletal diseases, and the accidents are nearly the same, 21%. So if you check the number of evacuations, 13% of the cases were evacuated, mostly by accidents. And in this COVID time, there is a collaboration between the Radiomedical Advice Center and these 2 hospital ships, because these 2 hospital ships are also doing radiomedical advice consultations. In the old time, we were using these files, papers, but not now. Now we are using a very big database. We have the medical records of all of our seafarers and all the consultations before the program of maritime health, but we have a very big database to do the analysis of these medical records. And also what is important now is to share the information And all our centers in the coast and the Radiomedical Advice Center and the ships are connected the same net, so we can have the information of from all these points of the same seafarers. Thank you. Gracias. Спасибо.
Скажите, пожалуйста, вот вы очень хорошо все нам показали про стационарные ваши госпитали плавучие, где оказывается квалифицированная помощь. Но часто, особенно в случае травм или каких-то экстренных ситуаций, до плавучего госпиталя нужно пациента доставить. Кто оказывает экстренную помощь непосредственно на судах, пока пациента не доставили до плавучего госпиталя?
I need some translation.
Почему у нас перевод не заведен онлайн? Почему не переводят?
Ilona, can
The question is, during the accident on board, before the person will be delivered to the hospital ship, who will assist him, who will about the first aid, and who will help to deliver the injured to the hospital ship?
The hospital ship has a complete system to do this. That means first we are communicating through the radio, the satellite communication with the ship, and we are evaluating each case. In the case that the doctor decides to pick up the patient from that ship, then we connect in a meeting point. So both ships are navigating to the same point. And then we have a fast boat with some sailors, and also the doctor and the nurses can go there and pick up the patient and take it to our ship. There is the possibility to go directly to the ship, to evaluate directly in the case of an accident, for example, and to pick up this patient to our hospital ship. This is the most frequent way of doing. If we are near the Canary Islands, we can have also, we can stabilize the patient in the hospital ship, and then an helicopter, if it is an important case, can take it to the hospital, to the main hospital in Las Palmas, in the Canary Islands. But the normal way of doing is that directly the hospital ships connects with by radio, by satellite normally, in Marsat, and then the two ships agree a meeting point, and our health personnel, if it is important, goes directly to the ship to evaluate, or if it is just a consultation and the doctor needs to see the patient, then we have well prepared.
Он встречается, проводит осмотр с пациента и проводит подготовку. Yes, we see this, but thank you.
Когда,
But I'm
например, на
meaning now
рыболовном
the case
судне
when, for
у
example, at the
матроса
fishing
случается остановка
vessel there
сердца
is a
или
sudden heart
развивается
stop,
в результате
or
травмы,
there is a
например,
certain trauma
кровотечение,
with
которое угрожает
massive
жизни.
hemorrhage
Кто непосредственно
that
на
is
судне
life-threatening.
в
Who
этот
is
момент
on the
оказывает экстренную
boat,
помощь?
on the board,
In case of
supporting?
cardiac arrest or, severe bleeding,
Да, в случае
the moment
непосредственно
it's
остановки
happened on
сердца
board,
или
when the medics are
кровопотери, кто реально оказывает первую помощь на судне рыболовецком? Вот вопрос в чем.
I have only here, in case of cardiac arrest, we have all the devices.
Я слышала
But I have not
только
here.
часть вопроса. Да,
in
Луиса,
case of
смотрите.
cardiac arrest or have a bleeding case, when it's happened on board and we need an emergency, emergency moment, and the medics are still far away, who from the crew will assist this patient?
I have had one of these cases once. A trolling ship had an accident. A fisherman get his arm trapped on the doors of this fishing ship. And then who is the responsible on board? We train the responsible on board. According to STCW, we create a responsible person. Normally is an officer, and every 5 years he's recycling the knowledge. It is compulsory for him to renew this training at least every 5 years. So this is the person that
Проводится
will
обучение
connect
каждые
with
5
us
лет.
with the radio
То есть это
medical
человек,
emergency.
с которым мы подключаемся. И
Thank you, Luisa.
специальный персонал. Да, спасибо, Луиса. И еще один вопрос из интернета. Кто несет ответственность и как врачи в Испании получают аккредитацию для медицинского обследования моряков? Кто в Испании допускает проведение обучения врачей для обследования моряков на предмет годности на судах?
Luisa, do you understand the question?
Луиса, скажите, вы понимаете на мой вопрос? Слышите ли его? Скажите, пожалуйста, как врачи в Испании
Translating is speaking so loud I cannot hear your question.
Просто громко было, я не слышала его. Скажите, пожалуйста, как врачи в Испании получают аккредитацию для медицинского обследования моряков?
Is it possible, Ilona, that you repeat only you because the translator is just overlapping the voice and I cannot hear your voice? How the doctors are trained, maybe?
Who is giving permission to the physicians in Spain, the accreditation to examine the seafarers?
Okay, for medical examinations or for the hospital ships?
No, for the medical examinations.
Okay, for the medical examinations, the government has this special program, and the government is the one that gives accreditation to these doctors that have to pass a specific exam in Madrid, and that works for the government. So this is a special training program that is updated now and then. Every year we have several courses to update our knowledge.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you that you find the time. I know now that you are with, fishing fleet, fishing tuna. Я поблагодарила Луизу, потому что в данный момент она занимается обследованием моряков и рыбаков, которые у них сейчас компания по рыбалке тунца. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Мы немножко выбиваемся из графика, но я думаю, что не все так страшно. Наша следующая выступающая – это доктор Смолина Эрика Хейковна.
Erika comes from Kaliningrad, and she is the chair of medical examination for Fares. She's the preventive medicine doctor and also trusted doctor of Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark. And she also works for the American insurance company Steamship Mutuai. And I can say that there are very few experts like Erica in our country who combine the experience of clinical medicine and also an individual who is well versed in maritime, foreign maritime legislation, and she's a great expert in organizing healthcare in the Russian Federation. Erica, the floor is yours. Erica, please turn on your microphone. Erica, can you turn on the microphone button, please? Can you push the microphone button, Erica? We apologize for a technical error, and I will use it to add to what Luisa has said, and that would be part of my presentation when it comes to organizing maritime healthcare in Spain. She has mentioned the fact of storing data on seafarers. They have a great system. All doctors that are in charge of maritime medicine are part of a same computer system. And when the examination is going on, they include all data, including data on lab tests. And next time the examination is made, the doctor opens the medical file on the seafarer and can see what has been going on with this, the health status of that individual. And Spain is the only country where they have such a comprehensive system. The idea of electronic certificates or passports has been in the air for a long time in the European Union included, but always there is a question where the data will be stored. And of course, it's a stumbling point, and basically all discussions stop there because every country wants to have their own database, but Spain was able to establish this system long ago, and it has been up and running very successfully. Can Can you use the microphone? We kindly ask you to use the microphone because we have our online audience and they do not hear you if you do not use the microphone. Well, while we have a technical break, I will reiterate my question. Why don't we adopt the international standards? I have not heard this answer from Ivan. Maybe other colleagues have something to say. Well, let's get back to the questions if Ilona allows. It is a very important question that has to be reviewed and analyzed very thoroughly, and we need to provide here very detailed substantiation because we can include this matter in the resolution, but in order to develop methodologies at a federal scale, we need to bring together all proposals when it comes to adopting a single format when it comes to providing medical services. Ivan, I'm very specific when it comes to voicing or wording a question. For instance, you work with a customer, Gazprom. They already have their own standards. They have their vessels at sea, and they have a multifunctional rescue vessel. Per contract, it should have a certain scope of equipment, and it is based on GP standards because there is oil and gas producers. Now it's called international gas and oil producers. And we need, if we work at ANI or we work with Rosneft, they will have same standards. So any partnership projects with ExxonMobil or with other companies will be based on same uniform standards. Here you do not need to invent a wheel. You need to have a paramedic on board. There need to be a certain list of medicines, and you see that there can be standards in terms of rendering help in 5 minutes, in 20 minutes, in 1 hour. Why don't we integrate same system, at least as a matter of guidelines or recommendations? Thank you very much. You are right, and it's very good that you passed the message, such an important message to the audience. Actually, we do not avoid doing certain things because we don't feel like doing it. There is a law-making area and we are ready to apply everything. Actually, sometimes we go ahead of the industry development or certain trends before they are adopted when it comes to safety control, safety management system. It's up and running and it works really smoothly. And you are right in what you say, but in order to apply it practically, you cannot do it based on a decision of a certain individual because we have a governmental system. There should be a legislative act approving this manner. You said that you listen. You s- y- you said that you follow the guidelines of International Cardiologists Association. You see, our contracts with Gazprom, for instance, require certificates of various association at the legislation level. It is not stipulated anyway. Wait a second, I will argue with that. Let me say the following: basic life support. Look at 2015. You're not answering my question. You're not letting me do that. When it comes to medical education, and when there is a training at skill stations, we offer specific, oriented, practical exercises, and we do not provide extended resuscitation measures, but my question is, how many people are engaged in resuscitation operation? One doctor, two doctors, or more? Colleagues, I apologize. We are followed by more than 100 viewers. There is a certain program. Let's stick to it and let's respect our internet audience. If you would like to have a discussion, there will be Q&A session later on. And I don't know what how you, Ivan Sergeyevich, or to do with legislative activities, why he is approached when it comes to discussing this matter. But I think the government should be in charge of that. And we are willing to discuss these questions, but when time allows. In the meantime, I would like to give the floor to our next speaker. And let me tell you that we will have time left for Q&A. Erika Heikkinen has some technical issues, therefore we will give the floor to our next speaker. That is Professor Konstantin Logunov. He is the professor of St. Petersburg State University. He is the head of maritime medicine at INOT Staff Association, and he will talk about legal regulation for providing medical assistance at vessels and industrial maritime objects. Dear audience, dear panelists, I would like to thank you for an opportunity to present you today, and I hope I will cover the question that has been just discussed in the course of my presentation. We understand that labor at sea is very hard and very dangerous, but most importantly, almost all maritime operations are of international manner, be it extraction of natural resources, transporting goods, etc., etc. And we understand that when it comes to sea operations, various jurisdictions are engaged. And we understand that sea is free. Everyone can build a boat, go to the middle of the Pacific Ocean and extract what he feels like, and by doing that can earn money. But of course we understand that many people are willing to do that, and we need to respect the state sovereignty. So if we respect our laws on the territory of the Russian Federation, but due to the fact that we cooperate with other countries, we need to respect their law and also see which law will prevail in conflict and situations. So think of a tanker that has seafarers from different countries: India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Ukraine, Russia, Philippines, and the captain can be a citizen of any European country or Russia. And when it comes to the conflict of interest, we always ask ourselves which law will prevail. Let's say the law, the vessel is managed by Greece, and the shipment of goods starts from China. And of course we have to regulate all the conflicts, and that conflict of interest can happen at industrial platforms where extraction can take place. And we also understand that at those platforms there can be a manager coming from one country while workers can come from all over the world. And there are two mechanisms to solve the conflicts. Either you sign an agreement, bilateral, multilateral, or the parties establish organizations that will be in charge of solving the problems. When it comes to the maritime agreements, they're all based on the Maritime Convention, and that is the basis for each and every agreement. That is a convention that we'll look at. That is our main guidance. And when it comes to maritime medicine, there is a number of international conventions. Some seemingly may not have to do with medicines, but still you take them into account as you organize medical aid at sea to people working on vessels or extracting platforms. What are the key maritime conventions? There are four of the kind. First of all, it is the SOLAS, STCV, MARPOL, and one of the latest ones, this is MLC. This is the Convention on Maritime Labor. So this is the information that I'm sure is well known to all of you. And again, I'm talking about some common data. Now let's talk about international organizations. Of course, the most important organization is the UN that establishes the relevant agencies. We also look at intergovernmental relations, but there are also organizations that are established by various parties. And here we talk about non-for-profit partnerships. There can be some unions of workers and so on. Many may be interested in regulating all these matters that can arise at the sea. When it comes to organizing healthcare at the sea, of course, we are guided by the WHO, and WHO offers us international health regulations. There is the Department of International Travel and Health, and there is also the Department for there are collaborating centers on occupational health, and there are also centers for maritime medicines that work under the aegis of the WHO. When it comes to regulating the agreements, that is something what we always keep in mind, but let's look at this issue from a different perspective. When at the sea, we may see the conflict of interest of three parties: the employer, the customer. Also, there are employees who conduct operations, and there are also insurance companies, insurers, who carry the burden of insuring the risks. And of course, all of them have totally different interests. If you look into the problem deeper, you may think that interests are different, but the set of options available for these three categories of parties overlap majorly. Of course, the employee would like to stay alive after a long-term trip. Same for employer. It is important to make sure that the employee stays alive. And same for insurance company. They want all seafarers to come back home safe and alive. And of course, all are interested in training personnel for all types of emergency situations. And we know that the most efficient way to regulate this overlapping interests is not sticking to international agreements per se or looking at vertically integrated legislation, but rather providing a special approach to organizing the process. It's important for everyone to have a properly conducted medical examination. Employees and employees are interested to know how medical aid will be organized at the vessel. All are interested in the equipment and the list of medicines that will be available at the vessel. So how can you organize this part? And for us, we are guided by procedures, and if you follow them closely, you can just implement what is stipulated there. However, it may not always be the most efficient way to go. Here you look at the most relevant organizations that regulate maritime labor. Here you see several unions that present the interests of employers. There are associations of insurance companies. There are trade unions and specific organizations that also supervise the extraction of natural resources. If you look at the structures of these organizations, they are similar in many ways. And here, mostly I talk about the ideological approach. If you look at INCO or procedures of oil and gas extracting companies, we will find in the regulating documents same or similar sounding phrases. All prioritize healthcare. All documents say that most advanced medical technologies should be adapted for the vessel operations. And we also understand that for every operation, the medical kit should be special and unique. And we understand that occupational specialists are in charge of developing the uniform approach, and we want to bring together best-in-class experts who will advise us what to do when it comes to risk management in specific environment, when it comes to emergency response. And of course, here we also talk about the inter-industrial harmonization. And there should be a similar vision in place. We know that there is a basic set of equipment and medicines that always has to be in place, but it has to be added based on the specifics of particular operations. And of course, you cannot but ignore the digitalization. That is one of the key trends over the past time, and that allows us to communicate being thousands of miles away from each other. Of course, this trend will continue developing, and of course, our communication should be digital today, and the key phrase that is included in all standards, here you see it as the heading of the slide. I'm talking about common sense. And you can develop all types of procedures, rules, and requirements. You can agree about anything when it comes to concluding international agreements. But if it is totally irrelevant for your practical task of today, why would you stick to those procedures? And remember about what Alexander started with as he gave today's presentation. It illustrates the need to be practically focused, practically oriented. Another opportunity for you to look at the problem from a different perspective, through a different lens of a medical professional who renders first aid. So how does international interaction look for him or from his perspective? First of all, he needs to provide aid no matter where he is located, on the platform or on the vessel. And here he sees the merge of interests of the employees, of the customer, etc. And we know that, for instance, we procure medicines in our country, but you need to understand whether you can use these medical medicines when it comes to treating a foreigner. Yes, there is a platform owner who would like to organize medical care in a particular way. So he sets forth his requirements, and you need to stick to them. And that is what I mean by regulation. So regulation is about harmonizing, about comparing requirements and expectations of the customer and supplier. But as for the medical professional, he is guided not only by business relations with the counter agents, he also is guided by the ethical principles, and it's another part of the story. Doctors in every country receive trainings in different ways in different countries. We look at a patient in Russia from one side, and in other countries, for instance, people may feel happy if someone dies because they believe that the person immediately goes to heaven. Think of COVID, of the pandemic. Think of a large vessel where an outbreak of COVID happens. There you have citizens of Russia, of the Philippines. How will you treat all those people? Per the Russian Federation, you need to prescribe Russian medicine, Orbidol. But can you prescribe Orbidol antivirus medicine to a British citizen? These are the details, the doctor needs to take into consideration. He needs to gain experience in this regard, and therefore there are so few maritime doctors all over the world, because there is such a huge set of problems that is not regulated in legislation, and that is something what you can accumulate only in the course of your practice. I also would like to pay your attention to the fact that today's medical service recipients are interested in particular products or services, and how will we discuss it based on ethical matters or business principles or somehow else. Well, I can say that the owner of the object at sea is interested in buying or providing services. He wants someone to train his personnel so that the personnel will know what to do in the emergency situation. He wants someone to provide online remote support if needed. And this is something what we need to focus on. And if we are able to offer the market players in the or market maritime players this package of products and services, everyone will feel happy. And that is what we focus on at the Institute of, or our institution or college of remote health care. On behalf of our association, I would like to invite you for our scientific conference that will take place in September. Hopefully, we will have more time to discuss these matters, and hopefully, you all will be able to gain helpful information for yourselves. Thank you, Konstantin Valerievich. Any questions from the floor, dear participants? If not, let me read you a question that we received on live. In your opinion, what is the largest challenge of Russian maritime legislation and international norms? I think that first and foremost, it is about ideological differences or approaches. Approaches are so drastically different. If the majority of countries we deal with, by and large, prioritize medical expertise of a doctor when it comes to providing medical care, because we know that it takes several years for a student to receive training at medical school, and then there is postgraduate training. This approach is not ordinary for us. I don't say it's unacceptable. We just look at this subject from a different point. So we treat COVID as is instructed by the Ministry of Health, and we believe that we receive specific clinical recommendations and protocols that we use to treat every disease. But then what about the art of treating? It's another question. Again, the difference of approaches is the is key in raising misunderstanding. Of course, we are not aimed at enhancing the contradictions. We are just different. Do we still have? Are we connected with Erica? Is she still online? If not, I will continue. And I think everyone knows me. Well, let me still introduce myself. I'm Ilona Denisenko. I was the president of the International Association of Maritime Healthcare. Today, I represent the Association of Research and Education in Maritime Medicine, and also represent Vista organization.
In 1997, the International Maritime Organization (IMO) and the World Health Organization (WHO) published the first international guidelines on medical examinations for seafarers. The document was unparalleled and was an invaluable aid to the work of maritime administrations, doctors, and other partners in the shipping industry. However, after a while, it became necessary to revise and refine the manual as there were global changes in our understanding of the diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis of certain diseases. And for your understanding, if in the work the IMO or ILO is working, everything should be based on the basis of the new guidelines. And an IMO and ILO working group was established to develop the new guidelines according to scientifically proven medicine. And in 2013, yes, thank you. I beg your pardon. And in 2013, the International Maritime Organization and the International Labour Organization published the guidelines for the medical examinations of seafarers. In working on this publication, the IMO was responsible for the Maritime Labour Convention MLC 2006, and the ILO was in charge for the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping for Seafarers STCW 1978. Here I need to say that in the next time we will face the revision of this particular convention. The purpose of the guidelines was to create a document that would reflect the contents of both conventions and would provide guidance to member states in implementing their provisions. The main basics here is that seafarers shall undergo medical examinations to reduce risks to other crew members and to ensure the safe operation of the ship and their personal health and safety. And seafarers shall have a valid medical certificate certifying that they are medically fit to perform their duties at sea before beginning work on board of the ship. And here it's very often leading to a misunderstanding between our system and the system that is demanded from us by the International Labour Organization and Convention, because it is stated there that we are not willing. We understand that there are not 100% healthy people anymore in the world, and at the moment of the execution of the contract, the human being who is working should not pose any threats to himself or herself or to the other people, and to be efficiently to work under the contract. Which medical specialist should conduct such examinations and issue medical certificates? And what is included in the concepts of maritime doctor and maritime medicine and doctor? Because very often, even when you are speaking to the doctors and say, I am doing maritime medicine, what? Maritime disease? Sea disease? Or what do you mean? And a wide range of disciplines that aim to improve the health of seafarers by developing more effective approaches to healthcare, health promotion and treatment both nationally and internationally. This is the notion of maritime healthcare that is provided by IMHA. And maritime medicine is not an established, well-defined discipline in the medical world. There is little specialization in this field, and the establishment of degrees is in its infancy. This information is taken out of the Guide to Maritime Medicine in the Digital Herald in Norway, but this is also a part of the international guidelines. The doctors are special people, and maritime doctors are double special. At first, because there are not so many of us, and secondly, in the guidelines for medical examination of seafarers that was adopted by the International Labour Organization and Maritime Safety Committee of the International Maritime Organization, stated that the competent authority must draw up a list of accredited physicians to conduct medical examinations and issue medical certificates. And I want to stress it out that there are doctors stressed, not clinics, not medical bodies and agencies. So what has a doctor to do and to be capable of? He needs to be a qualified medical professional. He has to have experience as general, occupational or maritime medicine physician, and in certain countries, surgeons or anesthesiologists are allowed. For example, in Greece, they've passed a law on accreditation of doctors, and there were general practitioners within the scope and the uh, professionals of occupational medicine. And here, one of the most important is the surgeon. And for surgeons, they've changed the documents after several discussions on this on the state level. The doctor has to have knowledge of the living and working conditions of seafarers on ships, and hand over heart, more than a half of people who are working on medical commissions of seafarers, they just don't know what are the settings for the seafarers for their living and work. For example, when we've organized the courses for maritime medicine, we try every time to organize at least one visit of a vessel or a certain practice on the vessel directly, because at the visits of a vessel, our colleagues start suddenly to beginning with what are they dealing at the end of the day, why the seafarers have some problems with hearing, like hearing loss, after a certain time of work, and so on and so forth. They need to comply with all requirements for medical examinations to be carried out in a confidential, discreet, and clean manner as it is stated in MLC. They need to be provided with the text of the Seafarer's Medical Examination Manual, including information on the appeal process in the event of a refusal to issue a medical certificate, because they are working on behalf of a competent organ, and in case of conflicts they need to see the conflicts and fix them, and in case of the problems with health they need to provide for treatment also. Even there will be no issue of certificate, they need to be independent on ship owners, seafarers and their representatives, be familiar with the standard of competence for seafarers designed to provide medical care on board of ships and in accordance with the national laws and regulation, and they need to be familiar with the latest edition of the International Medical Guide for Ships or equivalent medical guide for use on ships. As of now, we have the draft of 2008 International Medical Guide for Ships, and now we've started the work on the new issue, and in this time IMO and ILO and the international WHO as an international organization, they will issue it without the World Health Organization, because they are departed from us, and as the basis we will take the last Dutch guideline, and as of now there is the creation of an international working group, the member of which I am, and we are working on this. Where to find these specialists? And only in few countries marine medicine is taught as a to all maritime countries, which would improve the quality of medical examinations and make the medical certificate universal. And we were thinking about the fact that when there will be the new issue of AMLC, and the majority of countries will accept this and acknowledge this, we will arrive at this universal form. But at the end of the day, it turns out that it's so complicated. It's more complicated than we have seen it in our thoughts, and very often, because there is another maritime administration in the name, you will need to renew it and make it very often at the other doctor. One can be accredited in Panama, the other in Bahama Islands, and one and the same will be just redrafted and revised, and many just visit these doctors and say, I need 10 certificates and I just need to rewrite these 10 certificates or make them not void or applicable. I think also unique, I will just tell about the countries. The Norway experience, there is the Norwegian Maritime Directorate, Sjøfart Directorate, and it is in charge for life, health, working conditions and the environment of Norwegian flagged ships and ships in Norwegian ports. The agency was founded in 1962 in Oslo and moved to Haugesund in 2006 in light of the implementation of a program to decentralize government organizations. The Norwegian Center for Maritime Medicine (NCMM) is the part of the Department of Occupational Medicine at Haugaland University Hospital and the University of Bergen, Norway. It was established by a decision of the Norwegian Parliament in 2004 and began its operations starting from June 2006. This was a revolutionary decision. The Norwegian Parliament takes the decision to create an organ which will further work with the problems of maritime medicine in the country. A half of the center are the foreigners that were invited from the other European countries, British, for example, India also, and they, as of now, are working with accreditation, with education of the doctors and medical specialists who are later issuing the Norwegian certificates. And also, Norwegian Association of Maritime Medicine is taking part in this. It was organized in 1969. And to get the accreditation of the Norway Sea Directorate, you need to pass the courses. These are the trainings. They are two parts: distant training, 15 hours with a pre-test, and 15 hours of training program, with a final test consisting of 100 questions and situational tasks. The applicant must give at least 80 correct answers. Further, if they are not passing the exam, there could be a secondary making of the exam. If you fail it, you will need to pay for the second time 8,000 crowns, about several thousand euros. And once in 5 years, a refresher course must be taken, and the next step is to apply to the Norwegian Maritime Directorate. And in case of positive decision, the doctor's name is entered into the list of accredited specialists, and he gets an access code to the system allowing to issue medical maritime certificates. And in Norway, they used to say that the doctors who are accredited by the Norwegian Maritime Directorate have the access to the governmental system, and this is still not an easy system to be accessed. And to write or issue a certificate, you will need to use three codes, one of which is getting on your phone every time, a new code. Therefore, there is no probability to falsify the certificate. Still, I have seen one falsified certificate. They've done everything ideally. The one thing, the date is put manually there, and the number was not made by my hand. But still, the directorate issued this. There was the presumption of no fault, and although they've seen that there was no number to make this at this time, but they contacted us to check whether the medical commission was done at this day for this particular seafarer. Accreditation in Norway is rendered for 546 doctors. That means in small Norway, 546 doctors can make the admissions, and outward of Norway, about 200 specialists have the accreditation. About Spain, we've already speaking and more. Let us speak about New Zealand. The New Zealand Maritime Administration does not impose any special requirements to the doctor's specialty and does not require any special training. Any doctor can do this. It's okay for you just to be registered on the site. And by the way, I have so many slides, about 36 of them, where there is a description of accreditation in 19 countries. I think you will get your copy of slides, and there is a thorough presentation. And here I wanted just to speak about France. And there in France, there is a French support agency for the Ministry of Sustainable Development. This is the state body, and there is a special faculty at the Brest University. By the way, there is the same agency in Bulgaria, where they are actively developing the maritime medicine in Varna. And this is my last slide. When I was preparing my slides, yeah, it's just for your understanding how many slides do I have. So just I want to tell you, there was just a very interesting case, a notion, how to get this medical commission and not to be mentally ill. And there is just one question. There is one doctor who is asking from us from MOC, and how all the admissions are made there. And there is a huge medical commission with attendance of many specialists. Unfortunately, it is growing and ever growing in terms of specialists, of requested tests and admissions. We have the same system that which is existing also in the former Soviet republics, where the system is ideal. I could not say it, but by means of these round tables as of today, I think somewhere, somehow, we will arrive at the truth. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. Ilona, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, may I please ask a question? Sergey Antipov, General Director of the group of companies CKM. Ilona Valerievna, thank you very much at first for your presentation. This is a great overview of international projects and practices, taking into account these narrow um, topics of admissions of seafarers. Of course, this topic is very interesting for the Russian Federation generally, and my question is as follows. In every country, there is difference in approach. What is the best approach? We cannot say it right now, but what about the situation in Russian Federation? How do you work with the seafarers right now? We're not asking you for an assessment, but just taking into account these differences. Because nowadays we see a huge delegation from the Federal Medical Biologic Agency that is leading in this issue in the Russian Federation, and I'm glad that in our today's discussion we have representatives of the trade unions, but there are also customers here, and therefore we see these questions. And there is a question of admittance, and this is a colossal problem because when we are working with the seafarers, we see every time one and the same issue. We are broadening the commission of doctors. There are many, many doctors. The number is growing. How it is done in Russian? And what is your opinion? Do we need to change something or no? Thank you for this question. And this is like the question for every conference. And there will be not enough to have one day to discuss this. Hand over heart, I can say that the commission that we are having right now, you need there was just an idea. Do we have a problem with one part? If we are opening only one part, or if we are trying to deal with one part, how it is prescribed by the convention, there is the signature of the doctor, and we need to have a signature of the doctor and to call to the doctor in case when there is a problem with the human on the boat offshore. And this is the signature of the head of the commission. And distinguished colleagues, I need to say the head of the commission may not see the patient. And all these valid stamps are not saying anything to us, because recently there was a case when the death of a captain in Singapore who passed away in the age of 45. So he was okay, but in But in his room, we've seen also many drugs like anticoagulants. And there is a medical expertise, medical assessment at the coroner. It was the commission in Batumi city, but still we cannot get the answer. What was with this captain? They tell at the moment he was okay, he was health, safe and sound. But anticoagulation drug is one of the counterindication for work in sea, and he passed many doctors. And just one more case, for example, you may imagine there was a person who passed three psychiatrists, narcology psychiatrist, and again narcological psychiatrist, and then there was a knife attack, stabbing, performed by this person, and everybody, the psychiatrist told that he was safe and sound. And where is this thin, fine line of understanding? I don't know. Do we need to invest our time, to waste our time and the time of our specialists and the money for the specialists just to sit down? Because, I don't know what about you, but I've went through a medical commission through 10 minutes, and I've passed 10 specialists, including encephalogram, in Moscow. Do we need to have this? And thank you so much. And I think the next speaker, Erika is with us. We are greeting Erika right now, and she will just open up these ideas about medical commission within Russian. Erika, the floor is yours.
Hello, dear colleagues. I hope that finally you can see and hear me well. I would like to thank you for the invitation. For me, it's a great honor and pleasure to speak for you today. And I am the practitioner in healthcare industry, and I do medical examinations, including examinations for seafarers as well. During the previous roundtable discussion, there was a great presentation by Yuri Dedovin, who talked about the analysis of the legal framework that we currently have. I'm not going to dwell on that. Rather, I will look at it from a different perspective. I believe that regular medical examinations of seafarers will allow us to avoid risks of disasters that may happen at remote locations. And we need to understand whether the legislation base we currently have is helpful or not when it comes to selecting seafarers for naval trips. We have two documents, two codes. That is the code of merchant shipping and the code of marine transport. And it talks about requirements that we have in order to allow the seafarers to work at vessels. So all seafarers have to undergo medical examination, including the chemical screening. And this examination should take place annually. So both codes recommend that we do medical examinations and chemical screening on an annual basis. Moving on, in 2006, we see the convention was adopted on maritime labor. We are analyzing the convention. Next slide, please. And again, next slide. And there you see all requirements when it comes to issuing medical certificates, when it comes to organizing medical aid on vessel and assure on prevention traumas and so on. The next slide, please. And then we see that the federal law was issued in 2012 when Russia ratified the convention. Following that, we see a set of documents issued by different governmental agencies that set basis for our compliance with the convention's norms. And finally, we issued two orders about introducing the changes in the composition of medical kits, and we have discussed pros and cons of this document, and we understand that one of the shortcomings is absence of strong narcotic drugs that we could use as we provide medical aid at the vessel. And the Ministry of Trade and Industry issued an order about investigating the occupational hazard cases. And then there was the order of the government of the Russian Federation issued in November 2012, where we identify the executor, the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation, that would implement all the terms of the convention and who will harmonize the Russian legislation. The department that is in charge of this endeavor is the Federal Medical and Biological Agency. So this is the agency that develops the new standards, but in 2019 the order was cancelled, and those of you that worked in the fields are well aware of that. So the order was cancelled, but it regulated not only the procedure of medical examination, but also selection of future seafarers for employment, and there was a very good categorization for seafarers, for those that work in different compartments of the vessels. And we looked at such criteria as experience and so on. So individual assessment was to be performed. And also we looked at the various medical conditions and diagnosis, and we described which conditions were acceptable for the Maritimes to continue their duties and which were not. And then there was an order that stipulated the procedure for employing maritime workers. This is the latest version. We were looking forward to it, and it is very needed. But what do we see here? We see here a procedure for medical examination requirements for the medical commission. There you see a list of documents you have to fill in. Finally, here you see a template of the medical file, and also it includes also a template of the medical certificate in English that has to be issued for the seafarers and should be accepted by foreign countries. I saw the first version of this draft version of this document back in 2015, but still it has not been finalized. The next slide. And in 2017, there was an order about the list of diseases that prevents you to work on vessels, on board the ships. Here you see some color distortions, hearing problems, etc., etc. And up to that point, we had a legal gap, and that would not always allow us to make proper decisions. Of course, that was disturbing for many, for trade unions, for the Ministry of Transport, for medical community. We discussed that subject over and over again. We wanted to understand how we would do medical examination, what factors had to be taken into account. And here you see a set of recommendations from Russian Consumers Surveillance Agency. And here we are talking about mixed navigation vessels. So what does the agency stipulate? It says that given the lack of a legislative base, we are guided by sanitary norms, by the aforementioned codes. We are also guided by the order number 302 that was developed to evaluate health status of people that work in hazard conditions, but mostly ashore. And before April 1st, we were guided by these norms. This Russian surveillance agency recommends to take into consideration the following hazardous factors for maritime workers. And by the way, here's the paper I was talking about. And this hazard factors are standard. It's like noise, higher electric magnetic field, and also there are separate rules for certain jobs, for certain occupations. And of course, you need to evaluate the list of hazardous factors for each particular vessel and for particular occupations, because we understand that mechanics at various vessels are exposed to different hazardous factors. But this list of norms does not talk about watching and watch keeping and for instance as a hazardous factor. And today, as the new order number 23 was introduced, we again have to be guided not only by the list of counteractions we have, counterindications, but also the all the hazardous factors that are included there. So what is good about this paper, about this order? It's good that medical examination starts from anthropometric physical data like weight, height, body mass, and so on. Body mass is a marker that is actively used by many countries during medical examination, and we know that the paper, that application form of for maritime workers often includes the body mass index information, and we know that the limiting level is 29, and when it's already 30 it already can be a counterindication. And by the way, body mass index equal to 30 is not that high. So what is also recommended in this order, we do examination based examination of cardiopulmonary system functioning based on a risk score system that we have. But considering the fact that this order is developed for onshore operations, we provide recommendations to follow. And again, we need to understand whether for instance, if the maritime worker has high blood pressure, what do we do with him? Do we allow him to work, or we recommend that he does not go at sea? This is another document that allows us to do medical examination and subsequent selection. We understand that there should be limiting factors, but they should be substantial, because when it comes to limitation, it's always a sensitive factor, and it is always a good ground for conflict. Well, we need this document a lot, especially when it comes to hiring fresh graduates. The following document you see on the slide is a relatively new document that was adopted as of June 1st, 2021. And here we see the changes in the criteria for issuing licenses and certificates. And I hope that it will provide us us proper help. We know that there is aviation medicine, there is space medicine, there is diverse medicine, there is special medicine that regulates ground transportation, but there is no maritime medicine per se. But there are certain requirements that talk about maritime medical medication. Today, any medical organization that conducts regular medical examinations for other occupations can conduct maritime medical examinations as well. And what do we have today? It is quite challenging. We see a great number of organizations with different types of ownership that hold medical examinations, and sometimes they have no idea what documents they should use to be guided in holding maritime examinations. The next slide, please. What do we have at the moment? There are certain filters, and we are trying to systematize the procedures for medical examinations and to increase their overall quality. Here you see the administration of Kaliningrad port, and here we give a list of the medical facilities that are entitled to carry out medical activities, including medical examination for seafarers. So in Kaliningrad region we have quite a short list. You can see it on the slide. And what are the criteria to be included in the list of entitled organizations? Well, today you need to submit an application. You need to submit a copy of your license that confirms a right to hold medical examinations, and we also would like to see the confirmation of the medical professional qualification as well as relevant experience. And today the preventive medical doctor should be the head of the commission, and the other practitioners should have up to 140 hours of professional pathology relevant experience. And of course that includes occupational hazards. And at the same time, when we talk about it, it does not really cover the specifics of working at sea. And the next slide, please. Here you see a draft project that is developed by the Federal Medical Biological Agency. And here you see a list of medical organizations that will be entitled to conducting the medical examination for maritime workers. So what's interesting in here, among 24 organizations that you see in the list, 4 have foreign accreditation. And I was lucky to work at one of these medical facilities, and I also I would like to give you some orientation as to how to be admitted to the list, and this selection should be indeed transparent. Erica, Here you see the document that stipulates the interaction between the Federal Medical Biological Agency and the employers. Here you see a set of requirements for medical examinations based on ISO standards. And here you see another document that regulates medical examinations. And here we see that again Federal Medical Biological Agency carries out a great deal of work. You see they issued another document on medical medicine, providing medical aid in extreme situations, and there is another set of documents developed by Federal Medical Biological Agency, and hopefully these documents that are draft versions now will be adopted in near time future. And the next slides may look revolutionary. However, I may not, I hope I may talk about that. What I suggest, we have order 707. That is the classificator of medical specializations, and I believe that maritime medicine should be part of those specialties, and that will allow us to develop professional standards, and that can include various occupations, starting from paramedic medicine and finishing with the high-level medical operations. It would be good to include the maritime medicine in the list of medical activities, and that again will give us grounds to develop maritime medicine. And then we will legalize many issues that we discussed today, but we will have legal support when it comes to licensing medical organizations. They will go along clear procedures, and with this I would like to finish. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Erica, for this fantastic report. I think Erica was able to answer a great deal of questions that could occur. Unfortunately, we are running behind the schedule. Therefore, I suggest that questions that you may have for Erica be voiced a bit later. I have still a question. First of all, the problem is that we have foreign speakers and they are going to present online. Why don't we discuss all that after we give the floor to our foreign speakers? Our next speaker comes from Morocco. This is Dr. Terry Gailan, the Maritime Doctor of Medicine, head of the Moroccan Society of Maritime Medicine. The society was established as his initiative. He's a very proactive doctor who was able to consolidate experts not only from Morocco but from entire African and Arabic region. So we give the floor to Tarika. Are you online?
Terry, can you hear us?
Good morning, Patty. Can you hear us?
What about you?
Fantastic. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much. Привіт всі. Я не говорю по-русски. I will speak English. Uh, Thank you so much to invite me. Thank you, Luna. Thank you, other organizers. I will speak slowly to allow the translator to make the translation. I will share now my presentation. It's about maritime medicine in Morocco. It's an opportunity to see what happened in another part of the world. You can see the presentation now. Please, could you confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yeah, Tariq, we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, just my introduction, just to speak about Morocco. If you know Morocco, we are in the north-south Africa, just in the south of Spain, and we have two coastal facades: the Atlantic Ocean at the west and the Mediterranean Sea on the north. Regulation for seafarers is very old in Morocco. It's in 1919 with the French occupation. And in that time, the ship owner was obligated to make a medical examination or fitness medical examination for the seafarer. Just to remember that in 1996, it's a crucial year for seafarers in Morocco because there was a separation between uh, Ministry of Fisheries and the Ministry of Transport. So now we have medical health with two streams because both of them, fishermen and seafarers, depend on two different ministries. The merchant marine is a very important sector in Morocco. 98% of Moroccan foreign trade use the maritime route, especially with import, export, and transshipment. There was in the trade and passenger shipping have many connections, especially with the south of of Spain, but also north of Spain, south of France, and south of Italy. What about the organization of medical medicine, the marine, in the merchant marine? Medical care for seafarer, we have our own regulation, which is the law of the maritime trade I, I spoke about, which is old from 1990. And since 2013, we ratified the MLC, which is now in force. So the medical fitness examination for seafarer is well organized and structured. It's allowed by general practitioners who are in the private sector. So they make examination in their medical office, except in emergency cases when they make consultations on board. And they receive a training course. It's it's not a special training course. It's just about some requirements about STCW and MLC and some ILO standards. So it's not a training in maritime medicine, but only in some requirements. And later they receive an agreement, so an accreditation from the Minister of Transport to make the medical examination of fitness for seafarers. The fishing sector is also important in Morocco, important about his incomes, but also important about his numbers. We have something like 100,000 fishermen in Morocco, so it's the triple, 10 times the number of seafarers, especially in the coastal and the artisanal fishing. Also, Morocco is one of the most fish-rich areas in the world. We are the first in Africa, and we are the first, the largest exporter of sardines in the world. So it's a very important sector. Medical care of fishermen now it's depend of Ministry of Fisheries, not like seafarer whom depend of Ministry of Transport. So about our regulation, there was a convention during that separation, a convention between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Marine Fisheries for organizing the fishermen's health prevention and for establishment of fishermen's health services at the main port. We have um, something about 22 centers. So there are medical centers with adapted materials, but doctors we have are physicians from public health sector. So in Ministry of Fishery for fishermen, we have physicians from public health, and they made examination in specialized medical centers. In the merchant marine, we have physicians from the private sector, and they made examinations inside their medical offices. We have to say that Morocco finally ratified the Convention number 188 about work fishing, but we have some delay in the harmonization of our own internal regulation with this convention. So that Fishermen's Health Office has several missions like, well, in labor medicine, like medical fitness of fishermen, like prevention of occupational accidents and diseases, like improvement of the working conditions of fishermen, but also they provide medical attendance, medical care for consultation, for emergency first aid. They also made vaccination and other activities like hygienic inspection of the vessel. For example, in 2017, there was, for example, 44,000 medical fitness visits, and there was 9,000 medical care consultation. They also made paramedical care attendants because they have also nurses and secretaries. Also in 2017, this is the registration of consultation by kind of specialty, and we can see that there was many respiratory diseases, many musculoskeletal diseases and dermatosis. Well, anyway, they are relating to the nature of working at sea, especially with fishermen. We made some epidemiologic studies among fishermen. We have to see that we made many studies about among fishermen, not among seafarers, maybe because they are the most important in terms of number, maybe because they cooperate well, but well, we make especially studies for among fishermen. We made ones about infections when there was many risk behaviors, like for example, 32 had at least 2 sex partners. Another about dermatosis, when we had palmar hyperkeratosis in 67% and fungal infections in 44%. Also, they reflect the work at sea. Respiratory diseases was not much, chronic bronchitis in 5%, asthma in 6%, and COPD in nearly 4%, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. MSD, which is classical, as I said, our colleague Luisa, we have nearly 40%. And cancer, we made a study when there was multiple sources of occupational exposures to cancerogens on board at the tobacco, of course. Sleep disorders in a study we had an insomnia at 55% and daytime sleepiness in 68%, especially with fishermen who made shift working on board, like sardiniers and trawlers. Psychological disorders of seafarers, we had occupational stress at 50% and orderly behavior at 66%. Orderly behavior is the risk-taking behavior, so it's not easy to take risk without necessity. Addictions reflects also this kind of population, and there is some comparison here with Spain. First, because they are our neighbors, but also because we made uh, 2 or 3 studies together with our colleague Elena. Elena is Topa Pujol. So there's many addictions, especially tobacco and cannabis. Cannabis. There was no much alcoholism, maybe because it's a taboo question in Morocco. We are an Islamic country, so persons don't like to speak about alcoholism. And well, finally, we'll analyze the situation. Finally, we have a health system in maritime medicine with 2 speeds. It's the consequences of this separation. First one, the merchant marine is well organized and structured with international standards and with a target population mid and high socioeconomic level. But there is no special medical centers. So medical fitness passed inside private physician's office. There is no objective requirement for the accreditation delivered by the Ministry of Transport to the physicians. They only must to make a demand. Uh, Luisa spoke about Spain and spoke about an examination to be passed by physicians. It's not the case here in Morocco. And also we have no epidemiological data. For example, we had some problems during COVID-19 pandemic, maybe because it's depend on private sector. The second one, the second speed, the fishing sector, which is not enough organized but structured. Uh, International standards are not completely applied yet, and we have problems in medical care and occupational medicine for seafarers. First, we have insufficient medical coverage, one physician for 500 for 5,000 fishermen, and there is also many missions and tasks for these physicians that finally are overtaken by events. For example, in 2017, only 36% of fishermen have benefited from occupational visit. Only 19% of hygienic inspection of the vessel was done because that doctors have many tasks to do. And also there is no training course required for fishermen physicians. And for both sectors, we have a lack of Moroccan system for telemedicine. Telemedicine now exists in Morocco, but for seafarers is not operational yet. There's no coordination between both sectors. We have a system with 2 speeds, as I told, and there is no specialized maritime medicine diploma required. So for future prospect, first telemedicine, we cannot be in the century 21st century without telemedicine. We need also special medical maritime centers like the experience of Spain. We have Instituto Social de la Marina. It's the same institute, the same center for both sectors, for both workers finally they are seamen. So fishermen and seafarer are the same. They must be in the same institution, and this institution must be depend on the state and not private to allow other actions like prevention, like epidemiologic studies and other things. We need qualified medical staff, especially by the obligation of recognized maritime medicine diploma. And it's an opportunity to speak about efforts made by our neighbors Spanish about the master they have. They make a very, very important job in this field with the University of Cadiz. I'm speaking about Luisa and about Pedro and other professors. Standards for agreement delivery. These accreditation, these agreements must have some standards and maybe examinations to be delivered for organizing this sector. Maritime medicine research centers to improve research in this field in maritime medicine. We are now making some efforts, but they are personal efforts and individual efforts, so they are not an academic and academic structure who make these research. And also, we ask for multidisciplinary approach for maritime health. So about economics, about security engineering, about safety management, social psychology, etc. So we have to have a staff of multidisciplinary persons for maritime health. Well, spasiba. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. It was very interesting presentation. We'll, as you know, we will have some question session, if it's okay with you. Thank you. Our next speaker comes from Denmark.
And our next speaker comes from Denmark, Michael Lund Nielsen from Dutch Maritime Department. He is the medical counsel. And we want to greet you because... Good morning, Michael. Michael, can you hear me?
В Дании тоже уникальная система, особенно о чем сейчас будет говорить Михаил, на острове Фано.
About the island Fono, they have a center for training of medical training, especially for maritime medical training. I was several days there, and when the seafarers were making some medical manipulation, I wanted to cry because they're making the manipulation perhaps better than many of the doctors. But I think Mikhail will tell this in detail, and moreover, I will add to this.
The floor is yours. Please, can you keep 15 minutes? We're a bit running out of the schedule. Thank you.
I think I will keep
Да,
it
да.
under 15 minutes.
Я думаю, что я даже меньше, чем 15 минут.
Okay, you see my screen?
No?
No?
Yes,
Just shared
yes,
it?
now.
Yes? Okay, very nice. I will first of all I will send thanks to Luisa in Spain, because I know that the Danish system of maritime healthcare is inspired from Luisa in Spain. So thank you very much. The maritime healthcare in Denmark and medical care education is what I am handling with. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a nurse, but I work at the Danish Maritime Authority as a medical advisor. The maritime health care system in Denmark is see if I can change it. Yes, sorry, We say it is 3 parts in Denmark. It's our Radiomedical Denmark, the temas. You can find it on this website here. And Radiomedical is very nice and have been in the same place for 25 years. Then we have a research center. Some of you may know it. It's the Center of Maritime Health and Society by the South Danish University. And then we have the center where I'm working. We are part of the Danish Maritime Authority. If we look at radiomedical, as I told you, there have been on the same hospital for at least 25 years. We need to put it in a European tender now. It's the European directive who tells us that, but let's see who wins the contract one more time. So Radiomedical is on contract with the Danish Maritime Authority, and it's paid by the government. They have 8 doctors on duty, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If you see the curve here, in 2020, there was an increase in the calls to radiomedical, and I'm sure the COVID-19 is one reason. What I think is very nice is that we could treat people on board because we do only have 43 evacuation. So we only have 43 evacuation with a helicopter or a ship or something like that. There was about 130 who was put ashore when the ship was in harbor. The research, the Center of Maritime Health and Society, it was established in 1992. Actually, it was in the late 80s. There was one doctor working a little bit on research on medical care on board Danish ships. But you can go to the website, and many of you may know the research they are doing at this center here. So let's just go on here. My center is the one who make the courses for the person in charge of medical care, both for the merchant fleet and the fishing fleet. We also provide service in the maritime medical areas for all ships flying the Danish flag. We have, and we are responsible for that. We have standardized medicine chests with standardized medicine and medical equipment on board Danish flagships. And we have standardized formula they have to fill out when they contact radiomedical. Okay, sorry. But the most important thing is the education of the seafarers on board, the officers on board, and we have turned that into a simulation. And just a little bit of history background. In 2012, we were asked to make a cost efficiency of refresher medical courses. Actually, they asked us to cut 1 day off, so we only need 3 days. So the challenge was to prove that we could save money for the ships companies, but how should we do that? And could we still have a high quality in the standard of medical care on board? There was a task force at the center here, and we agreed very quickly that we should invest in simulation, because in simulation you have a lot of possibilities. The simulation, as we have it today, we have small, like sick bays. They have fully medicine chests. They have the electronic dolls, so they can handle a sick person on board. And if you look carefully here at this picture here, we have a screen up here. Something cannot be done on a doll. Example, what color is the skin? Is he pale, or how does the skin feel? They will get the information on the screen here. They can make injections. They can apply a catheter. That was the force of, I think, was the best thing for the seafarers. All the scenarios are made from statistics from radiomedical, and actually there is not so many accidents if we look at the statistic. Actually, it looks like a normal GP, general practitioner, what he is meeting in his office. The seafarers, the officers can train the IV on the dolls, vitals. They can measure blood pressure, pulse, and we can change it in the situation. As I say, they can make injections. We can examine the body. They can look up in the medical guide if they need to do some examination. For example, malaria test, they just do it on each other. Contact to radiomedical. Yes, we have a fictive simulated radiomedical, but it's a correct telephone number and it's a correct email address we are using when they have to contact radiomedical for advice. And we have in our legislation that they should contact the Danish radiomedical on Danish flagships to get advice from here. And one special thing here is if they follow the advice from the doctor at radiomedical, he is responsible for the treatment on board. Of course, if you get a prescription of 10 milligrams of morphine and you give him 10 milliliters, the one who is in charge of medical care on board who doing that is also responsible here. What about the future? Because we don't like to stop here. We think the simulation, and our seafarers tell us that the simulation is one of the best thing that has happened, and we develop it every time they are here. Same as in Spain, they need to refresh their skills every 5 years. Future, we are working together with the Business Academy Southwest in Esbjerg. It's very nearby where I'm sitting, and we are exploring if we could use the virtual reality, and especially if we could use the augmented reality. So actually, we could put the one who is in charge of medical care in the situation when he entered the room. He entered his own sick bay on board the ship. Actually, we could change the color of the skin of the doll, etc., etc. But they tell us we have to wait. We have to wait about 10 years before we can do all this. Also, we need to explore, is there any apps that can be used on board the ship? We have some trials with telematic equipment where you have video and you are sending live data from the ship to the radiomedical in Esbjerg, but they have to buy it, and the doctors also need to be ready to have the video conference and use all the vital signs that could be sent in this way. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Island. You know, I was really amazed about the simulator in the engine room with, you know, when the seafarers was trying to, you know, make manipulations when it was no light, bleeping, you know, vibration and noise. Because I always tell that there is one thing to do it when it's calm and the patient is lying on the, you know, sofa. The other thing when there is root sea and it's a real emergency.
Mm.
Thank you. Да, пожалуйста. Michael, don't leave us, please. We have questions.
I have not leave. It was just my video.
Okay, thank you.
Михаил, спасибо большое за прекрасный доклад.
Much for your fantastic presentation. It is commendable, and by using this opportunity, I would like to say that your national football team that participated in the latest Euro Cup was also very impressive, and the loss they had was very maybe just a coincidence. Well, my question is the following. As I understand that the medical service is, bulk of medical services are provided at the vessel by trained personnel. But you talked about 43 cases of evacuation that had to take place. So what were the reasons to evacuate the seafarers? Why was it impossible to provide medical help on vessel, and what was the reason to evacuate those guys?
I'm sorry, I do not know the 43 cases where they have to evacuate the patients from the ship. I'm sure you can find it on the radiomedical.dk. There is a report I'm not aware of because they are on contract with me. I have just the numbers. I do not know the cases. Sorry.
Да, пожалуйста.
Еще один короткий вопрос. Действительно очень интересный доклад. Да, у меня вопрос следующий. Вот Илона подтверждаете, вы говорили о том, что вы обучаете как медицинский персонал для работы на судах, так и немедицинский персонал.
Personnel as well. So
Правильно
you
я
train
понял, да?
both medical and non-medical personnel. Am I right? So
We are training non-medical persons. It's often the legislation in Denmark tells that the master on board a Danish registered ship have to have a valid medical care certificate. Often it is the chief officer who is in charge of medical care, so he also need have a valid certificate. We do not have doctors, nurses on any Danish flagship. We don't have cruise ships at all. So it's non-medical professionals we are training here at the center. And I will say we have a big success with it because everything is very close together in the radiomedical, the research center at the university and our center. We are working very close together. We have one standardized medicine chest, or we have several, but we have standardized medicine and equipment on board. And radiomedical know precisely what the officers on board the ship can do of practical procedures, what they have trained.
Понятно.
Один вопрос поступил онлайн.
We have just one
Возможно ли
online question.
взаимодействие с
Is there
федеральным
a
объединением волонтеров?
possibility of cooperation with the Federal Union volunteers medics? Because we know that Lipetinsky, doctor, is making many things in works with youth and youth science. Thank you so much. So, speaking about volunteers in medicine, yes, there is the All Russian Union, and as I know, with the Moscow service, uh, we have an agreement, and this is a good question because our volunteers and medics are also tracing the activities online. It makes me happy, really. Thank you for your attention. And about our possibilities, really, we are planning until the end of this year to make our work in the way to make it possible for us, for the guys who are oriented in their specialities on the third or fifth grade, to give their this vector as a priority in maritime medicine or diving medicine. And what do we do? In this realm, we are providing for a platform for them, and they're visiting us as the attendees at the doctor. They're helping the doctors. The nurses are also welcome, and we have also a vector to get this practice like an echo from the old Soviet times. And I'm working on this echo of old Soviet times for our guys from the third grade to fifth grade to be at the practical mood in the on board. Also, we are discussing this with the support of the journal Seafarers Medicine or Maritime Medicine from the certain years. This is an official journal for maritime medicine, and of course we need to involve youth here, young people. Let us say the young people need to be to work with us because we need to preserve our potential, and this is the answer from my side. Really, I just did not understand quite well this question. Was this the question to you or to Michael? Mikhail? Mikhail, we want to ask you.
Yes, sorry. I must say, you should send an official appliance for the cooperation. We might be ready for that if there is interesting for the simulation in medical care. Yes, of course. But let's have a speak about it. Please send it to me.
У нас
And now
остался
we
один
have
вопрос.
one question from the hall to Dr. Tariq Gailan from Morocco. Tariq, are you online? Are you with us? Can you hear us? Tariq Gailan from Morocco. Can we now contact Tariq, please? Because we have an online question to Tariq. Tariq, are you online?
Who is decided in Morocco? Who is taking the decision? Who is fit and not fit concerning the seafarers?
Well, as I explained, we have two seats only because there's two ministry in charge of of seamen and of medical is the Ministry of Transport, and they have some physicians whom are private physicians. They examine seafarer inside their medical office, but there's general practitioners, these private doctors, have an agreement, an accreditation from the Ministry of Transport. So not every doctor, not every physician can make this medical examination. Only that person who have that accreditation. For in the fishermen sector, we have some physicians from the public sector whom are working inside special medical centers for medical examinations of fishermen.
Thank you, Tariq.
Спасибо.
И я бы хотела,
And
перед тем,
now,
как мы начнем
before we will start
обсуждение,
the discussion
предоставить
round, I
слово
want to
еще
let the
одному
floor to one
человеку,
more
без
person,
которого бы
without whom
сегодняшний круглый
today's
стол
round
не
table would
состоялся
not
бы.
be facilitated at
Это
all.
Антипов Сергей
Antipov Sergei
Анатольевич,
Anatolievich,
генеральный директор
General
Центра
Director of the Center
корпоративной
of Corporate Medicine. The floor is yours. Thank you so much. So I am minimum way involved here. This is the group of companies, Center of Corporate Medicine, SCM group of companies, and by the merits of this group of companies, we facilitated, as I may state, a very interesting round table. Let me be brief at the commencement because beforehand, and I do believe that we will facilitate a discussion today. Formal, informal discussion also, and on the basis of this discussion, I think we will realize a certain document which it will be a resolution of the round table. I think the facilitators will state about the resolution a bit later, and this is the most important thing. And I just wanted to note here and now and today that as of today, we've registered online attendance of more than 110 people, which is now described by the facilitators of this roundtable. The official statistics of attendance of is will be discussed a bit later. But today we united listeners from Vietnam, for example, from Morocco. Today we are inviting guests from Denmark, from Norway, from Scotland, from Spain, and of course from Russia. And at this, by Russia, I mean from Kaliningrad to Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. And that means that the task to create an international roundtable is done, because we are now on the international level. And thus saying, I would say that the facilitation of exchange in our experience in this very uncommon and very important for Russia topic, and by this topic I mean maritime medicine, is there. And I really do hope that this experience, together with you, will be fostered, will be supported further, because as of now, we could state clearly that there are many bullet points that are very topical for us. There is so much topicality, and may I not be correct right now, but I would still recommend to take this all into the discussion. We will facilitate the discussion because all these questions are very important for us, of utmost importance. And what is our task as of today? We need to shape a certain vision, and we need to move forward together with the state agencies and bodies to facilitate again and to shape this subject of maritime medicine, maritime doctor, and all which is in between. And it's a very nice thing, and it is a great tradition that we are greeted on behalf of the State Duma of the Russian Federation, of the Council of Federation. And really, I'm pretty sure that we will shape our own vision related to the matter of fact as how people who are interested in the development of this direction, as the experts, as this community, we will go towards the legislators. And this is very important to cover all these questions that are set. They need to be a part of our document, and I would like to enjoy the support of the Federal Medical Biological Agency of Russia. I would like to enjoy the support further of the Ministry of Healthcare of the Russian Federation, to enjoy the support of the Ministry of Transport of Russia. These are the bodies that are shaping the rules within this game. And by the way, today we are speaking about the mere fact that we need to get more understanding, more feasibility, more efficiency, and more usefulness to take it out of these rules. And this is just what I wanted to state today. And distinguished colleagues, again, I want to invite you to take part at the International Conference for Remote Healthcare in Tomsk. There will be a huge section related to maritime medicine, and there are questions and this is the right question to ask, where is Tomsk and where is the sea in Russia? But we are speaking about the remote healthcare. Therefore, maritime healthcare is also a part of remote healthcare as the modus of work. And we will provide and we will shape a great platform for discussions. There will be more time, at least. Perhaps we will speak about mere medical problems, about fundamental aspects of rendering of medical help. And also I wanted to speak in detail about the organizational matters. So you are kindly welcome. And our 2 days speakers, you are also kindly welcome. And the guests who are online and offline today, all the listeners of our conference, also for the future listeners who will see us further. At the beginning of September, we are planning to facilitate this conference. The contact information, precise information will be published on our websites. And all of you who want to make a presentation, and I'm pretty sure that many of you could provide for additional presentations and reports already today, we are now preparing the agenda. So please, there is the committee, organizational committee, and we are preparing the platform. And special thanks goes to all the speakers today, to all the presenters, from the Russian side, from the international side, from all the countries. Thank you so much, because look, today we are facilitating a round table. It's July month in Moscow. It's too hot. There are not so many people. There is COVID, but we gathered. Many are on vacation, but still you are coming to us. And this is showing that the topic is very important. And I wanted to thank again the Institute for Remote Healthcare, the president of the Institute, Karpov Andrei Borisovich, for the help that is rendered by the Institute, for the special emphasis that is put into conduct of these events, into building up of this agenda, because we are building the expert set of people who are working out a certain opinion and position. But look like the distinguished friends. Today we can see that the resolution that was issued in St. Petersburg, the first resolution, today it is also answering many questions related the support of the trainings, for example, how to train the medics and paramedics to work on board. And again, I want to state it again that we are speaking about not about an isolation. We're speaking about international approach. The flag is not playing the huge role right now. This is an international problem when we're speaking about the maritime industry. And the special thanks goes to Ilona Valerievna Denisenko. Ilona Ms. Denisenko is the well-acknowledged leader in Russia and abroad in terms of maritime medicine and maritime healthcare. I really do hope that Ilona, you will be with us further, and personally we wish and we ask, we demand for your presence in Tomsk at our conference. Thank you so much. And now I am letting the floor further for facilitating of a discussion either here or during the coffee break. And thank you for all the participants. Thank you for everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for this warm-hearted speech. And you are asking, where is the sea in Tomsk? Very often I listen to the same argument about Moscow. But still, Moscow is the port of 5 seas, as they say in Russia. And look, Mongolia has also sea register. We are not only welcoming all the flags here in Russia in Moscow, and at the end of the conference, many of colleagues, foreign colleagues, started to speak and write in Russian. And we've got a message from Luisa in Russian. Thank you to the organizing committee for invitation to share our experience in maritime medicine. We are grateful to our interpreters that they facilitated the communication between us and the Russian community. And let us give a round of applause to the interpreters that I've listened to it. This is a great work. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as of now, I wanted to let the floor to the Professor Karpov. Yes, distinguished colleagues. Yeah, thank you, Ilona. Thank you for this introduction. The organizing committee of today's event provided for a project draft of the resolution. I will not read it out because it was provided by the speakers. It was also in the hall, and it will be also accessible in online format. And if somebody of the guests or of our remote guests and participants will have something to add or something to notify us of or suggest, any offers are open. We will be ready to discuss everything and include it into the final variant, final draft of the resolution that will be published. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. I think hereby we are opening the floor for any offers. And I think we may facilitate a discussion. We have not so much time, but still. Do you have any questions? Mr. Shestyrkov, please, the floor is yours. But please do use microphone. I have not the questions, perhaps, but the answers to the questions that were set from Kaliningrad. Speaking about the Ministry of Healthcare, we have a next draft of the decree of the Ministry of Healthcare. The previous version was set in May, and it was criticized, and the last version is arriving our office at the last week. It is the better version. There is also a sample of the international Russian English drafted certificate of a seafarer. There is a corrected for scope of medical research. There were something items that were missing, something additional, and we will correct it and we will send our offers. And the second, speaking about the pharmacy kits on board, and together with a representative of the Institute of Maritime Medicine, we have a draft or decree of the Ministry of Healthcare for first aid kit. And 10 days ago it was sent to the Ministry of Healthcare. There are three variants, three for sea and three for rivers. There is a huge difference in grades and in filling in of the kits. We have 68 units for category A, category C for includes 22 items, and for rivers 22 items also. I will not speak in details about this, but speaking about the speciality, um, maritime medicine, de jure, it will not be the case because there cannot be standards in the maritime medicine. Why? Because there are no specific diseases. There are no specific technologies for treatment, everything that is necessary for the treatment.
And we did a big research and analysis in diverse medicine, and it was a very great effort. We are talking about specific diagnosis and specific technologies for treatment. As for medical examinations, the Order 852 was approved without taking into consideration our opinion, and we have submitted our opinion to the government, and we believe that the companies that that conduct the medical examinations should have special license for maritime examinations, and we gave substantiation why it needs to be done. Unfortunately, the government did not take into consideration our rationale, and it was issued the way it is, the way you have it today. What else can I say? We are completing the development set of professional occupational standards for maritime personnel. We will write down all requirements for competencies, for skills, and as for maritime doctors, we have it's situations the same as for divers medicine doctors, and we here you need to take into consideration a large scope of competences. So that's what we have as of today. I think it's all clear about the project. I will reiterate by saying that the draft project we received last week, it looks better than the previous versions that we received earlier, and we are going to send our comments in the near future. That's all I wanted to share with you. I have a question for your comments. We hear that the draft project has been developed by the Ministry of Health, by Federal Medical Biological Agency. The international agreements were signed by the Ministry of Transportation, but it all looks like a fable about swan. And just metaphorically speaking, why don't we, instead of playing ping pong between all these agencies, we would have a consolidated effort discussing, getting all together and discussing all these aspects, and hopefully we will receive a final project, because we've been talking about same thing for a great deal of years. I apologize for interrupting, but I would not agree with you. You say that maritime medicine will not be introduced as a specialty. It exists in other countries, and we understand that maritime medicine has its specific, because maritime operations have its specific. Of course, it doesn't have to be linked to university specialty, and why don't we establish a body like Denmark or Norway did, a Center of Maritime Medicine that will accredit specialists for holding examinations? Like if you get an accreditation from the directorate, you will be able to conduct the practice. So talking about occupational medicine, it's such a vast subject. There is automobile transportation, there is space medicine, but maritime medicine also has its specifics. And the doctors need to understand that. They need to understand where their patient comes from. Absolutely. One thing you talk about doctors that practice medical examinations. Another thing you talk about doctors that work on board of ships. It's a big difference. For on-board maritime doctors, there will be a professional standard that will describe all requirements. As for medical examinations, it's a matter of licensing or accreditation in my point of view. To solve this problem, I think we need to approach the naval authority. And again, we had same challenge with the divers medicine. So far, there is not a single paper that would cover issues of the divers medicine. And in order to tackle this problem, we had to approach the naval authority. Let's engage them in the dialogue then. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with Ilona Valerievna. You see, today's roundtable discussion is a multidisciplinary in terms of the scope of competences we discuss here. So we represent private business while you represent the federal agency. And there are representatives of rescue operation services and so on. For me, as the head of the business, well, I don't know, maybe it can be your agency that could establish the Center of Maritime Medicine, or this medicine could be established at the Ministry of Transportation. I don't know, but I think it has to be established. We need to do this something this or the other way. We are looking at industrial maritime medicine, and we are interested in supporting vessels, in platforms, in rescue operations. But again, no matter what I'm talking about, still has to do with maritime medicine. As we started doing this work, we understood that these problems existed back in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union collapsed 30 years ago. You see, none of the Soviet documents are valid today, formally, formally or non-formally. Well, all right. The question is then the question is, what kind of training should medical doctors or medical professionals undergo as they get ready to work on board of the vessel? It should describe, this document should describe the list of requirements, but we don't have this list yet. Have you looked at professional standards of doctors? Doctor of what specialty? I'm not talking about specialty. I'm talking about professional standard of maritime medical professional. If you look at such standard for diverse medicine, this doctor is this document is as large as 40 pages. But the question is, will this document exist? Is it existent today? No, it's not existent. We have not started developing it yet. And by the way, it's not easy. We received a draft document for aviation medicine. We looked into it, and the requirements for skills and competences are quite conflicting, although the draft project was signed by 10 academicians. Well, I believe that with this we should finish the discussion. You said that 10 doctors of medicine signed the document, and I can talk about Denmark. There, they have, nurses working, and effort is organized in a better way. Yes, let me say a few more words. As of January 1st this year, we have introduced large changes to extend our authorities. It took us a year to convince the Ministry of Health. We saw a great deal of resistance, and so far we don't have relevant authorities. Dear colleagues, so far we do not want to talk about tension between your agency and the Ministry of Health. You need to understand our functions. I understand you don't understand them. Well, I understand there is a lot of tension here. I would like to thank all participants. Thanks very much for inviting me. I'd like to ask a very quick question. Boronov Andrei, that represents my corporation. So my question is very easy. During one of the latest inspections, the question arises, do you have a medical professional that can care for COVID-infected seafarers? Can you give me a contact of an organization that conducts training to treat COVID patients on board the ship? That's it. Okay, dear friends, if you want to hold a discussion, let's do it with the use of microphone. This is a very relevant topic. During the second wave of pandemic, we opened 5 mobile hospitals in the Arctic region. I will connect you with our medical director. It's a very important subject because it is linked with the entire production line. And of course, as we opened mobile hospitals in the Arctic region, where it may take you 3 hours to transport the patient with a count of all standards that are stipulated by the Ministry of Health, Department of Health, Surveillance, and so on. So again, I don't know the functionality of a Federal Medical Biological Agency, but I believe that you should be the leader in discussing all the matters. And we apologize for addressing somewhat inconvenient questions, but we believe you need to lead the discussion for us. You are the last point of contact. And again, thanks for joining us today. And I would like the federal borders to be here as well. And it's good that the representatives of legal representatives of lawmaker and agencies are here as well. All right. Here we saw an outcry in the wild. What do you do with COVID today on board the ship? You know what to do when you are on shore, but if you are offshore, what do you do? I will add to what Sergei Anatolovich has said. In the pandemic, and during the pandemic, a large mining company approached the Institute of Remote Healthcare, and they approached us with a request to develop procedures to counteract various COVID scenarios. So this company has the marine platform. It has vessels that transports materials and personnel. They have offshore platform. They have helicopters. They have it all. So for all these locations, they need to develop a procedure that's a large-scale project that was developed by experts of the Institute of Remote Healthcare with the help of our association. And the Center of Corporate Medicine was also engaged. So if you have similar requests or needs, please contact the Institute of Remote Healthcare. It's one of our functions. I say it for the reference. We do scientific research. We also do the development of educational programs, and we provide all types of consulting. But most importantly, is providing targeted assistance for our customers, and this is a customized solution. So we do not extrapolate preventive programs when it comes to preventing cardiovascular events, and that's a traditional thing, right? We are developing specific programs for specific personnel for specific environment and conditions. Yes, absolutely. What is also important, it's not a public agency, and we are not financed from the federal budget. Nevertheless, we are developing flexible solutions for our customers. And one of the authors of the aforementioned documents is Dr. or Professor Karpov. And indeed, it covers the entire process, starting from observation, ending up with staying on board the ship. And we will be happy to share it with you. So I would like us to have more experts, I'm not saying that we are going the right and only way. My only comment, and by the way, thank you very much, take into the consideration that the board, any ship has a common, a single ventilation system, and we were talking about a separate ventilation system, right? It's very relevant for COVID pandemic. Let's talk about it on the fringes of the conference. As we started analyzing the remote health care, we discovered such an exciting topic as the hygiene in healthcare. And when we gave a report in the US, we were commended for our expertise. So what you talk about is certainly very important, but again, we are not the last point of contact, okay? We want to work as an expert community. Our colleagues represent the institution with independent experts. We have something to offer, so it's very important. So with this, I would like to thank the participants, sponsors, speakers, our foreign colleagues, and I think it's high time to finish our roundtable discussion. And I sincerely hope that we will get together in autumn in St. Petersburg as well as in Tomsk. Well, we are planning to have a meeting first in Tomsk, and then we will have an Arctic conference in St. Pete, another very important subject, and of course, very closely linked to the maritime medicine. Thank you very much. So, all stay healthy. Bye-bye.